Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Commission. My name is Allison Fonseca. I'm the Policy and Legislative Counsel for the Attorney General, and this is Keith Hoffman. He is the Chief of Policy for the Attorney General as well. We're here to talk about the statewide rental registry. It is. Can you hear me?
Sometimes they get a little call on the text asking.
No problem. So the statewide rental registry was designed to protect one of our most vulnerable populations, children. And it did not impose any new lead mitigation requirements. Yet this commission, the legislature, our office, the Department of Health, continue to hear from a few noisy, negligent, and non-compliant landlords who are willing to risk the health and safety of our children rather than following some common sense health and safety laws. The statewide rental registry was passed more than 18 months ago. It was reaffirmed by the General Assembly last session and had overwhelming support in both chambers. Again, it required no new lead mitigation requirements, but this was a very important and long-standing issue that was really designed to be addressing the enforcement of the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act that was passed in 2002. Lead poisoning, we know, can cause irrevocable and irreparable harm to a child's brain. It can lower their brain development, lower their IQ scores, result in behavioral problems, and lead to lifelong health effects. Due to decades of inequitable infrastructure development, a lack of investment, and a lack of enforcement, lead poisoning has continued to affect our communities here in Rhode Island and across the country, and disproportionately in communities of low-income or minority communities. Unfortunately, this issue has been long-standing, but it is entirely preventable. Rhode Island has the third oldest housing stock in the country, with 72% of our homes built before 1980. Today, over 40 years after lead-based paint was banned, more than one child per day is still being poisoned in Rhode Island. Rhode Island has the second highest rate of serious lead poisoning in New England. Landlords have been required for over 20 years to maintain certificates of lead conformance under the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act of 2002. And before the registry, the Department of Health maintains an online database which housed some lead-safe certificates, but it only included less than 10% of those homes that were actually required. Let me be clear. The rental registry is not a novel concept. This is something that's been implemented in states and municipalities across the country, including Maryland, which is seen as the gold standard in this industry, who implemented a lead-safe rental registry and reduced the rate of lead poisoning in their state with between 95 to 99%. Again, something completely doable in our state. Again, this registry does not impose any new lead mitigation requirements. It does establish a registry where all landlords will be required to register their units with basic contact information for the landlord or agent. It also requires landlords of pre-1978 properties, those before lead-based paint was banned, to file their lead-safe certificates, again, on the books for over 20 years. Significantly, a primary purpose of the legislation was to ensure the allowance of a publicly available database that could be used by tenants when they're looking for housing, or tenants when they're currently in housing and wanting to make sure that their homes are safe. Since the registry's introduction and passage, and throughout the implementation, we've received complaints from certain non-compliant landlords, while in some instances may be genuine, are based on inaccurate facts or insufficient reasoning. I want to talk through a couple of them just for the purposes of, I know that these are issues that have come to you all, or you may be hearing. And so one of them is that there are not enough lead inspectors. That argument is simply not true. There is certainly an increase in demand since the passage of this law over 18 months ago. And the increase in demand, that's because those landlords who had not been complying for over 20 years are now required because of this enforcement. So they're now required, they must seek the inspectors. And so yes, there was a period of time where you had to call through the list that was available on the Department of Health's website. Since that implementation, the Department of Health has significantly increased the available inspectors on their website. It's now at 78 inspectors listed on the Department of Health's website. They can correct me if it's more. But our policy analyst just this week called through that entire list. And on the available Department of Health website, she called and found that about 20 were available within the next 2 weeks, some as soon as today. So with that said, there simply is no lack of available inspectors. If you do call, if a landlord is seeking an inspector, call through the list. Don't stop at 1, don't stop at 3. Call through the list. The second issue that continues to come up is the issue of the cost. There can be a cost to comply with lead safety laws, absolutely. But the risk to our children is so severe and far too great to fail to make those investments. Again, landlords have been required to maintain their housing in a lead-safe manner before this registry was enacted. There's no cost to register your unit on the new rental registry, and tens of thousands of landlords have already. As with any industry, demand can make prices increase. But what's important to know is this changes at ebbs and flows. Yes, in October, when the registry was implemented, there was a heightened lack of inspectors. Costs may have varied. But again, make sure that you're calling through. Make sure that you know that this is something you have been required to do. It does not impact any of new laws that require additional lead mitigation requirements. And I just want to make a note that every dollar that's spent in preventing lead poisoning can yield at least $17 in economic benefit. And there is public money available to landlords to do remediation work. You can look through Rhode Island Housing and similar city programs and a state tax credit. And most recently, the Rhode Island congressional delegation has brought in $13 million administered from HUD. $6.5 million will go to the city of Providence, $6.5 will go to the city of Woonsocket. And individual homeowners or landlords can apply directly through the city of Providence or city of Woonsocket. And then another issue that we've been hearing is this issue of uprooting families and wanting to make sure that their tenants are not going to be evicted because they have to do this lead remediation work. I just want to make clear that the majority of inspections do not result in remediation that requires the level of remediation that requires moving out of the property. Certainly not permanent removal, but in some cases, even temporary removal would be minimal. And if landlords do need to temporarily remove their tenants from their premises, there are already processes in place. Again, I just want to make clear the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act has been in place since 2002. We cannot continue to allow these few noisy, negligent, and non-compliant landlords to delay the work that's necessary to protect the health and safety of our children.